Portland Trail Blazers training camp is underway. Let the tanking begin, baby. Cooper Flag or bust. That is the theme, or at least that's my theme. Welcome to the Blazer Focus Podcast. I'm Aaron Fentress of the Oregonian and Oregon Live, and I'm joined as always by Craig Birnbach, who's fired up. He is fired up. That press conference has him going. He put all sorts of quotes into the rundown. He's arguing about things before we even get started. I'm like, whoa, Nelly, slow down. Save it for the podcast. And I think he's also excited because his Knicks are just making moves left and right. Like there's no such thing as a salary cap. Like there's
go New York, go New York,
unlimited assets. They're doing all the things that the Blazers have been unable to do in forever. But we'll talk about that later because I do think there's a linkage. I do think there's a connection between what the Blazers have failed to do forever and what the Knicks are doing right now at three major players in the last, 9 months? Because they got OG at the deadline, right?
Got OG for the deadline, and then
that was not the deadline.
Yeah,
it was during the season, but not at the deadline. Yeah, right. Because when I was in New York in January, I watched OG. I think I was at OG's first game. Wasn't it against the Blazers? No. It was like a fourth or fifth game. Anyway, whatever, I digress. We'll get to that later.
And then Bridges after the season.
And now Cat.
And now Cat.
All right, we're going to talk about that later because I think it's important to get to that. Not because you're a Knicks fan, but because of the Blazers situation. All right. So Media Day was Monday. They had it in something called the Fountain Room at Memorial Coliseum. Thank God they had signs everywhere on how to get there from the Annex Garage because yours truly would have absolutely gotten lost. I don't know how many times around the NBA I'm texting Rasan or I'm texting usually Rasan. Before that, Taylor, I'm like, yo, man, how do I get to the locker room? Where am I? I'm on the complete opposite side of the arena. No clue where I'm going. And then you take Media Day from where it's usually in the Moda Center and you move it into the Memorial Coliseum into the belly of it. But anyway, I found it. They had a nice fruit spread, which was great. I was killing the fruit. I love fruit. You give me a fruit platter and I'm just over there just chowing going, so Cronin, what about the backcourt? But anyway, so that was interesting. But anyway, we got Cronin. We got Billups. We got 10 players, I think, pretty much everyone that's going to be in the rotation. So let's just start with this. Look, a new season, a new day, but pretty much the same old thing. They bring back most of the same roster as we already knew. 13 players. How often does that happen? In the NBA,
Never.
Like it's pretty unprecedented. I'm not going to put in the time to do the research to find out exactly how many times that has happened, but let's just say that we know it's not very likely. But one of the reasons you do that is because, well, one, you're not really trying to win, so you're not going to go out there and make a bunch of crazy moves to really elevate your team's play because you're trying to get Cooper Flag. Let's just call it what it is. I wrote about it in my first article. I'm like, let's just say what it is. They're trying to get Cooper Flag or someone like that in the draft. They have no intention of winning. If they do, it'd be a miracle. And we'd all go, oh, my God, these guys are amazing. But that's not likely going to happen. But anyway, last year was a bust. It was a bust. Forget the record. Their goal was to develop and try and find a direction, but everyone got hurt. Like it was just, they had the second most injuries in the league. Everyone got hurt. They really didn't learn all that much last season about Shaedon Sharpe, about Scoot. Well, they learned a little bit about Scoot, but not as much as they wanted to, and about some of the other guys, especially Ayton, et cetera, et cetera. So this year you bring everyone back and they want clarity. They want to learn which direction to go in at each position. What are we going to do? Who are we going to keep? Who are we going to trade? Who's our future? Who's got to go, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what they're hoping for this season. And they're hoping to do so while, and this is delicate, they want to be competitive. They want Billups to coach to win. They want the players to play to win because that's how you get a better idea of who they are as players, if they're at least trying to win or in a position to go for it. And then you let the chips fall where they may. You analytically, you're going to lose. You know the West is stacked. So the losses are going to be there, but hopefully you find some clarity at each position moving forward. That's what Cronin said. That's pretty much what Billups said. Craig, what say you?
Sports should not be this complicated.
Right?
You should try. I mean, what Herm Edwards said it. You play to win the game. But when I say that, obviously, but it shouldn't. In year 3 of after 3 lottery picks, it shouldn't be this complicated. I mean, you should be after 3 straight lottery picks. and trading your best player for parts that were supposed to make you competitive, at least some part, you shouldn't be tanking again. And you shouldn't also have a coach in his final year. You shouldn't have 30-year-old forwards. And
I mean, it's just, let me just stop you there and I'll let you continue.
It's too difficult to hear someone say, we want you to lose, but we want you to win.
No, we want you to try to win. No, we want you to be. Look, they lost two in history. They've lost 3 games by 60 or more. They lost 2 by 60 or more within 2 months last season. They lost 3 or 4 other games by 35 or more, and then they had 7 additional losses by 20 or more. It was a mess, and part of that were the injuries. So there's a way to go out and compete and try to win, even though you know you're up against it, so that if you see the guys performing and playing 60, 70 games, then you can get an idea of who's what, where, how. Whereas last year, you couldn't figure that out because you wanted to play fast, but you couldn't. Ant got hurt. Shaden got hurt. Scoot wasn't ready, but you couldn't. Now, I looked it up. Their pace was second to last.
I get it.
And on top of that, they were.
But as you've said, Aaron, almost half those injuries, they sat.
Hold on. The last couple of months, yes, but not early. Not Shaden early in the season. Okay, not and
Simons.
then Ayton was adjusting to things, and not Simons early, and not Robert Williams right away. The last 2 months, yes, that was blatant tanking. But you got nothing out of what you wanted to see the first 4 months or first 3 months as well. So I hear what they're saying about this year is that they need a clean year where they can really get a grip and a grasp on what they have. Now, what I wanted to stop you on, and what I hear a lot of people say is they're talking about this is year 3 of the rebuild, or year 4, because they're counting the tank job at the end of 2 years ago when they got Shaden. But that was the product of, when they got Shaden. That was the product of Dame's injury, core injury, surgery, CJ's lung collapsing, and then them just blowing it up. That was not officially a part of the quote-unquote rebuild because they brought back Dame later. They went and got Grant, and they pseudo tried to win that season, and then they fell into Scoot. So once they fell into Scoot and then moved off of Dame, that's when the rebuild started. So that means this is actually year 2. This is year 2, but you got a bonus with Sharp.
Of their plan.
But you have a bonus piece with Sharp, and Sharp didn't even play in Kentucky, barely played as a rookie, and played only 30-something games last year. So you can't really fault them for not knowing more of what they have in Sharp, although I think he's the most talented guy on the roster, by the way. But this is really, truly year 2 of the official rebuild and tank mode post-Dame. Be fair.
That's their plan. What you're not including is what you spend a lot of time doing, which is criticizing what they did in that time to get us here.
But I can be fair. I can say I don't agree with this, but I'm not going to say it's been three years in a rebuild and they should know where they are by now.
Agree, fine. But I didn't say the rebuild. I just said 3 years of getting a lottery pick of 3 top 10 teams, and here you are. It's not good, and it's not just bad luck, and it's not just injuries.
I can't. Okay. Shaden was a good pick. He's been hurt.
The trade itself,
the Dame trade,
got you these pieces that, yes, the pieces you got were not great.
We're going to actually, I'm going to add that to rundown. I don't know if you saw my story the other day, but
yes, I did, and you proved it. You did a good job.
The part about the future picks is interesting. Well, let's talk about that. That Sam Quinn from CBS wrote about, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, 2029.
We'll talk about that later. Okay, so anyway. So it sounds like you're feeling like they're behind schedule.
No. All I'm saying is it shouldn't be this complicated, and it stinks that it is. And that's what we're concentrating on. I'm not saying it's year 2. I'm not saying they didn't have some bad luck and some injuries. I am saying that they made a decision to draft. We hate coming back to it, but when you drafted Scoot, that part of the plan, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like you had it nailed.
Well, last year was not good, but you got to give the kid a chance. And
right. So now you're here, and you also have everyone on this path right now has a very short runway because they're going to run out if they don't take off and do something. You got Cronin, who was a an interim GM. They got hired by a somewhat absentee ownership group. You got Billups that came in to coach Dame and try to win, who's on the last year of his contract. You got all these players, Ayton, maybe, Simons, I don't know, Grant, definitely not. You know, and then you've got the two guys that you're depending everything on. If that's where the clarity is to me. The clarity is, are those two guys potential all-star caliber players? And we talked about that last time.
How's that the clarity?
Talk all this stuff.
They don't have clarity on that.
If you come out of this season and Sharp is averaging 22, you know, or even 19, and he plays 70 games, and he shows you consistent moments of that short window we had, you know, before he got hurt, you're like, okay, that's a starter for for the next 5 years at least, right? And if Scoot steps up and plays like a number 3 pick at the point guard position, you're like, okay, we have our starting 2 point guards. Mr. Simons, you've been great. Thank you. We're probably our clarity is that these two are our starting guards, and we have a potential, you know, dynamic duo in the backcourt that's going to lead us going forward. Like, and then, because look, I like Ayton, you know, and he's at this point, like, he's not going to step up and be a top 5, you know, center. Centers are hard because who's playing center? He's not going to be an all NBA type player. You know what I mean? Where you're like, oh crap, he might be good, but he's not going to be like, that's where we're not. Okay, so you're saying that this season, the clarity is going to be in figuring out what guard is going to be. I thought you were saying they already should have clarity. Okay, so we agree on that. So let's. I'm not. I wasn't criticizing what they were saying. There's nothing else to say. You know, I mean, like, this is what it is. I'm just saying it's frustrating. If you're a Blazer fan, you have to eat that. You have to accept that's your truth. Like, when people say fire Billups, like, that's not living in your truth. Like, firing Chauncey Billups is not going to do you anything last year or this year. I have to follow my journey. Your truth is, we are trying to get another lottery pick. And here we are. This is my 3rd year, you know, if you're a Blazer fan, of saying we're going to stink. And I'm going to have to figure out why I want to watch this team and enjoy it. Because sports is supposed to be enjoyable. So what do you have to embrace? You have to embrace and hope that's going to be on the up, right? And realize so much other of it. Enjoy the magic moments of, you know, maybe Denny goes off for 40, you know, and you have a little week. But what happens when you go 5-1? Uh-oh. You know,
okay, let's talk about that. So one thing they want to do, just like they wanted last year, but things fell apart with all the injuries and stuff like that, and lack of continuity, is they want to play fast and be entertaining. So that's the goal. And so if you create a situation where you're like, okay, we're competing, of course we want to win, the players want to win, but we want you to go, 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 go. And there's not pressure to be ultra efficient while you're doing that. And you can just go, 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 because you're not expected to make the playoffs. Then you can see sort of where the guards, especially, and other players fit in that type of style moving forward. And maybe you can steal enough games to be interesting and entertaining. So if I'm a Blazers fan and I plop down $200 for 2 tickets, I'm going to watch potential future stars who are going to put on a show while they lose 115 to 107 to Minnesota, as opposed to 139 to 88 to Minnesota. That's what they're hoping is going to be the difference. And then if you do that in the season, you're 25 and 57, you're in the bottom 3, you have a shot at the number 1 pick, and you at least were entertaining and showed some promise. And then they can figure out, okay, who do we really like? Who do we not? How are we going to maneuver around our roster and swap assets and reshape things to help us win in the future? So that's the plan. And I hope it works out so I'm not falling asleep or on eBay in February while watching them lose by 39.
And, you know, all I want, what I hope, is to see Scoot be electric. Right. We know he's fast. Even at his worst moments, he was fast. But you can't be, you know, when you look at the numbers, one of the worst offensive players in the NBA and be a starting point guard. Like that's just not it. And Shaedon has to play.
Right.
I mean, at some point in time, like, he's got to play and be really good. I mean, what we've seen from him at times is just that he can shoot. He can step back. He's obviously electric.
And he's
finisher.
Fearless.
Fearless. He'll try to dunk on a truck. He does not care.
He'll try and dunk on a transformer.
Doesn't care. He doesn't care. And I love that, right? And the only thing that he hasn't been able to show us is consistently staying healthy, but he's 21, you know what I mean? So that can change. But I want to see that, and I want to hope that those guys are going to be what a number 3 overall pick and a number 7 overall pick should be for you, or needs to be for them to be the face of a franchise, right?
Right.
That's what Dame was. When you got him, you're like, oh, and it wasn't, people could say they knew, they didn't know. They didn't know, they hoped. But Weber State is not a place where you're like, oh, and Damian Lillard wasn't a guy that for 3 years people were like, oh, when he like it was a very fast track to say, but it was pretty instant. Like, oh, he's something. When Brandon Roy got here, it was something. LaMarcus took a second, but not much more, So, and then there's been other guys you're like, oh, no. Like that's not it. He's not, that's not going to happen. And, Jared Bayless, you're like, oh, no, that's a lottery pick, but that's not going to change the direction of our franchise.
All right, so
you take guys in the top 10, change the direction of the franchise. That's the hope.
So what's your prediction in terms of who's going to come out of training camp as the starting backcourt?
The starting backcourt? Because none of this is going to – what you're asking me is something I don't understand because I don't know what's in their heads. I know who's the better – I know it's very obvious that Simons and Sharp are the best players to start at the backcourt. I mean, I don't even know. There's no other discussion.
Yeah, the only
Sharp can't play the one.
Right, the only argument against that would be that Scoot is probably better at a lot of the point guard things than Simon. Some of the ball distribution things, the penetrating part of it, and then finding other guys part of it. But his offense is, in terms of scoring, is so far behind Ant that, to me, if Sharp is ready to play the 2, you go with Ant. If Sharp is not better at the 2, clearly better at the 2 than Scoot is at the point guard things, then maybe you're better off going with Scoot Ant for now. And again, the minutes could be equal, right? It doesn't have to be, where the 2 guards starters are getting 38 and Shaedon's getting leftovers. So, it's going to be interesting to see if Scoot has improved enough. So, okay, like if they say we got Grant, Aiden, Denny out there, Sharp sometimes, Ant sometimes, can Scoot do a better job of keeping everyone involved than Ant can, as opposed to Ant averaging 26, 27 and not keeping everyone involved? You put Ant at the 2, so he's still getting his points, but Scoot's distributing better, and then you bring in Sharp off the bench. I mean, that could be the argument. And that's part of what happened last year, I was told, is that Scoot was better at the point guard stuff than Ant, and so you put them out there together because Shaedon hadn't elevated to the point where you had to start him, but then Scoot's offense just regressed from what he was doing in training camp, and it became so bad that it became obvious that you were better off with Ant and Shaedon, but both of those had injury issues. So
yeah, that they can't guard anybody like that either. That's the other problem. Shaedon is obviously a more athletic defender. I'm not saying, and again, what do you care about? What are you looking for?
What do I care about?
A point guard. So I almost feel like you put him out there with Simons, you're also hurting him because Simons needs the ball.
I don't. But again, they're not trying to win, so I think they only care about putting. I don't think it's going to matter. Let's put it that way. I think the minutes are going to be almost equal. It's just optics, right? So I think optically, I think you're better off because Scoot was your number 3 pick, going Scoot and Ant, just like you did last year. Because I think Shaden, given the fact that he only played 30-something games last year and wasn't very good after the core muscles started acting up, that I don't think he'll necessarily complain or make waves. And you bring him off the bench, and he still gets 30 minutes, right? And so I don't know if it's going to matter. But I think they're going to go Scoot Ant.
And that's what they did last year, and you would hope that Scoot's better. So why would they change? My only thought is, what did you see last year? And did you learn anything from it that would say maybe Scoot shouldn't be out there with another ball-heavy guard?
Yeah, I mean, that's a legitimate point, too.
I just don't think it's good for – I mean, again, what you're saying, like, what does it matter? And also, what do you want to do with Simons? Like, where are you? They could say – so the one thing that we have to remember is that, and of course we do, and it's not just what we're seeing on the court in games when people talk about future of players and franchises. Well, like I said, like we've talked about this. I remember when they drafted Simons, none of us saw him because, he didn't play at all. He was like, he's barely was 17, 18 years old. But you'd sit after practice, and Dame and CJ both were like, oh, that kid's going to be something. That kid can ball. And we're like, really? Like, we don't know. I mean, because we don't see the run. You come in at the end of practice and see people shooting free throws and maybe playing, one-on-one, but we don't see what they see. And we don't see what they're doing in the weight room and what they're doing in individual drills. So, we don't know where Scoot's at right now.
Right.
We hope he's much better. I just think for the development of Scoot, if you think he's, you drafted him 3rd overall because you thought he was the point guard of the future. So play him at point guard. If you want to put Simons in there, okay. Again, this is not where you're making or breaking championship decisions here, right? Whatever. Play him that way. What you said, fine, do it.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, what is it?
Yeah, at the end of the day, they're going to get minutes.
Because like you said, there's enough minutes for the 3 of them to play around. Now, the question is going to be, can they play together?
Right. I asked,
can Simons and Scoot play together?
I asked Simons about, the fact that at the end of last season, he talked about wanting to win, yet he's back here. He said all the right things. And he says, hey, they gave me a good contract. They believe in me. I believe they believe in me, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a matter of sort of figuring things out in terms of who's going to be the best fit and who's going to end up being moved. I still think it's going to be Simons eventually, but, we'll see. Let's talk about the big men. All right. So you and I had a little chat before we started about dominating, who was the life of the party. He came in, was very humorous as usual, did use the word dominating. I asked him if he was set to pick, if he felt more comfortable, obviously I knew he was, but he's much more comfortable entering this season than he did last season since he was traded like a few days before camp. He used the word dominating again, which was funny the way he used it. And now, though, he's in a situation where Robert Williams is back. He says he's close to being a full go. Cronin said he'll probably be held back a little bit as we get started here, but he's been doing 5-on-5 action for the last few weeks, so he's definitely progressing. But you're going to have him, and then you're going to have Klingon, whom you spent the 7th pick on. And so, I believe Ayton will begin the season as a starter. But if Ayton plays and has the slow stretches like he did earlier last season, he's going to lose a lot of his minutes to Klingon and to Robert Williams. And I asked him today, actually, I said, have you thought a lot about what you're going to do with the minutes there? And he says, yeah, I've been thinking about it extensively, but he says, I'm going to leave it up to them and their play. Like, their play is going to earn their minutes. And and I think he means that because you have a developmental guy behind Ayton. So if Ayton's out there sloughing on defense, not rim protecting, taking bad shots or whatever, get him out of there. If Klingon goes in there and plays well and Robert plays well, and all of a sudden all your efficiency numbers go up because you don't need Ayton's offense if you got Ant and Grant and Denny and Shaden running around, right? Then you could see Ayton fall off big time. Now, does that kill them in terms of the future? Absolutely. Then you really can't move them. But if that's the direction, that's the direction. And I think they want Klingon to succeed. So Ayton has to come in hot or he's going to lose time.
Yeah. So what we were talking about before was that you were saying that Ayton's, they haven't like confirmed that Ayton's your starting center. And I'm like, that's crazy talk. He's your starting center.
He's your
okay. He's got to be
your starting center. But if he stinks it up and Klingon and Williams are doing
your host. If he stinks it up, like, then
there's no, I mean, it's going to look bad. It's going to make the overall trade package look bad, but you have to make a decision anyway. And if it turns out to be a bust, it's a bust.
Then you got to move him.
Right. But it's going to be really difficult to move $35 million a year. Right.
Yeah.
You're going to have to maybe throw in some
especially if a guy who's played 7, a 20-year-old kid who hadn't played a minute in the NBA.
Right. Essentially, you'd have to trade him for another bad contract, right? You say, hey, who has another bad contract at the same price? And we'll just swap bad contracts. And maybe that bad contract's at a different position, which, you could use that player in, 20 minutes a game, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, I'm just saying that there's more pressure on him.
He's going to have to really stink.
You know what?
To be worse than the guys behind him. I mean, he's a good player. But he's
if he slacks, okay.
And at times, a very good player.
They need him to play defense. They need him to be athletic, play defense, get to the rim, get to the free throw line. Don't settle for mid-range jumpers often. I mean, you can hit it.
He's good at them.
He's good. He's not great. He's not Tim Duncan, right? You don't want him out there thinking that this is where I eat. I'm just saying, you don't want him thinking this is where I eat in the mid-range. You want him to be more active in terms of going to the basket. You need him to be aggressive on the boards and help protect the rim. They were last in the NBA in defensive field goal percentage 6 feet and in at 67%.
Oh yeah,
and that's partly because Robert Williams was out, and you had to rely on Ayton and Dwight Reed, and the whole season to protect the rim.
Reed is 6'7",
and Walker, who wasn't ready. But I'm just saying, but part of the problem was Ayton not delivering in that area where I think it's going to be obvious that Robert Williams and Klingon will. And if those guys are playing defense, you don't need offense from the center position. You don't need 20 from Ayton. You just don't. And so if you're only getting, let's put it this way. Let's say you started Klingon and brought Williams off the bench, and those two each got 24 minutes and Ayton wasn't playing at all, which is not going to happen. If those guys give you combined 15 and 15 with 4 blocks, and your rim protection, your shooting percentage allowed goes from 67% to 59%, Ayton's done. You don't need him.
Yeah, I don't see how you get 15 points out of those two.
Are you serious? Just on putbacks and follows and like Scoot penetrating and kicking off to one of them for a dunk alone. Not 15 points each. 15 points total from the center position.
I know.
Come on, dude. Come on.
I just
in 48 minutes.
I don't know.
Okay, whatever. Those two would deliver you 15. And Robert Williams averaged 6.8 points per game last year in 19 minutes per game. Only 6 games, but in just 19 minutes, he was giving you 7 points. So I'm just saying.
Right, so now Clayton's got to get you 8.
Come on. Clayton's 7-2. He's getting you 8 in 24 minutes.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's a tough league. Okay.
Now you're just being ridiculous. Now I just can't take you. You're just being silly. You're just being silly now. Don't make me look up Drew Eubanks.
I'm saying 20. You want a guy to get you 8 points in 24 minutes. Just so you know, you double that. That means you think you can average 16.
48 minutes?
I don't think
no one plays 48 minutes, man.
Right. So play him 38. Now he's getting you 12.
Score
14 points a game?
Yes, I think if you give any big man 38 minutes, they're going to average around 10 to 12 just by being on the court. Hold on a second. Your boy. Yeah. I was like calling people someone else's boy. Drew Eubanks.
Who's my boy? Who's my boy?
Drew Eubanks.
Who's my boy?
In 2001, 2022, averaged 14.5 points in 29 minutes. I rest my case. And then the next year, before he got traded, the year before he got traded, in 20 minutes per game, he scored 6.6. If Drew Eubanks can do that, pretty much anyone can do that.
Well, I'm just saying,
he's going to start.
I mean, he's really good.
But sometimes he's empty calories, which is why the Suns do you remember Derek Coleman?
I get it. That's why he's
Derek Coleman would walk out on the court and just as soon as he stepped on the court, he had 20 and 10. But he wasn't a winning player.
Yeah, Derek Coleman wasn't a winning
player. Because his 20 and 10, his 20 and 10 came with bad shots, lazy moments, mediocre defense. Like, he just did things that made his 20 and 10 really more like 14 and 7 in terms of overall impact. And that's the criticism of Ayton.
I get you. Numbers aren't everything. And there's a reason why a guy averaging 18 and 10 got traded.
Right. And the fans celebrated. And got traded for Nasir Little and Grayson Allen.
There's a reason why he's here. The number 1 overall pick who was averaging 18 and 10 was traded. And I get that. I'm just saying, I can't believe I'm defending DeAndre Ayton here, but he's better than those guys. He
is better offensively. Defensively, not so much. And so unless he brings it, and that's the problem. He spends too much time worrying about offense and not defense. They need him to worry about playing defense. And if he's not going to do it, he's got 2 guys behind him who Williams said yesterday, he hangs his hat on playing defense. And Klingon helped his team, his college team, win a national title by barely scoring. Yep. He was not really a part of the offensive options, really, but he still got you 14 points and whatever, double figure rebounds and block shots. And you saw him in the summer league. That dude went after rebounds like each one meant something. And that's what Ayton doesn't do. So if Klingon gives you that, then ultimately he's going to make you better because you don't need offense from him other than putbacks and lobs. That's all I'm saying.
I just feel that if that happens,
it's not good.
You should not have traded for DeAndre.
It was a risk at the time. We all knew that, or most people knew that.
I just say though, like I'm not giving. I mean, that they have to. They can't. They hung their hat on Ayton. You wrote it a million times that if Ayton's a bust, this trade is a bust. And Ayton, to me, he's not a bust yet. I mean, like you said, last year he didn't get a chance to play, with a healthy team. And he had some nice games, like he had some nice runs.
Last month of the season, he was really good. But again,
once he got a bed, he
had no other scorers on the roster to contend with. Ann was out, Grant was out, and Shaden was out. So he was the main scorer. He was the main adult in the room. He could basically bark and order and command and lead, give me the damn ball. And that's what they did. And that's fine. But he's not going to be able to do that now because there's too many scorers on the court. So he's going to have to bring it because they don't need his offense. And if he doesn't bring it, he's going to lose minutes to those guys. Only 48. And then not one of those guys can play power forward more than a few minutes here and there against certain matchups. So you got 48 minutes. No. Let's say each one got 3 at power forward. That'd be 9. That's too many. You can't give him really. You can't give him 9. That's just too many. So even if we got a cup 5 sliced up between them, you're looking at 20 minutes, less than 20 minutes each would be the average. So you could easily be in a situation where if Billups gets mad. Do you remember when Billups yanked him in the game last year? Okay.
Yeah,
but when he did it, he was turning to Reith or Jabari. Now he's turning to Klingon and Robert Williams. And if those guys are out there bringing it on offensive defense, they're going to stay out there. And all of a sudden that 48 minutes shrinks and you don't have very many left for DeAndre. That's what I'm saying. So he better come ready to play.
And I'm saying that would be bad. And it would be very bad. And you made a huge mistake with that trade. If that happens, because when you look at this team, it's not close. He's the second best player on the team.
No, Jeremy Grant's better. Oh yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
I'd say Jeremy's better.
No.
You mean talent or player? Talent or player? There's a difference.
Well,
Jeremy gives you 100%.
Well,
if Ayton gave you the type of commitment to effort that Jeremy gives you other than rebounding, then you would have an all-star. But he doesn't give you that type of effort and commitment.
Yeah, but his numbers still. I know you're saying empty numbers, but Grant doesn't rebound at all. He's not the defender he used to be. He scores, when he needs to now. So this is what I'm saying. If you draft, all right, we're drafting the Blazers. You're a captain, I'm a captain. You go first. Who you taking?
We're going for one game. For one game.
Now we're picking.
For one game, do or die. One game. We're running one game. I got Anthony.
Right, and I'm taking
Sharp, and you're done. You're gonna lose.
That might be true because you got the first pick and it's not deep, but you just didn't take Grant 3. You didn't even take Grant 3.
Well, I'm taking Sharp because my backcourt's gonna run you ragged.
saying. Well, I got Scoot. I'm good.
You taking Scoot next? I'm taking Grant. Now it's really over. Now it's just a blowout. Now it's like, why are you even here? Because then you're going to take Denny, and I'm going to take Klingon. No, I'm going to take Robert. We're in protect. Excuse me. Sorry. No.
I'm just saying he's the second best player on the team.
All right.
I'm not crazy. I don't think that's a great question.
Anyways, I'm just playing.
Here's the thing. They wouldn't have traded Damian Lillard for Jeremy Grant.
If Grant was the best player they could get out of Phoenix at the time, then yeah.
You think if they would have said, if Phoenix had, and they could go, you could have Grant or Ayton, they would have gone Grant?
No, I think Portland would have taken it. I believe that if you're going to roll the dice in a situation like this, like they were in, you roll the dice on a former number one pick with that much athleticism and that much talent, and you pray to God he matures, and you pray to God he does what Lowry did when Lowry Marketing went to Utah. That's what you're praying for. You're just hoping that it clicks, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, look at this dude. Because he has that type of ability, but he's never displayed it. So we're going to see. We're going to find out. And what I'm saying is if he doesn't display it this year, his minutes are going to dwindle. That's all I'm saying. He averaged.
All right. So we're in a weird place because there's no doubt when I'm saying he's the second best player, I'm talking about some upside.
Okay. He averaged 32 minutes last, 32.4. I can see that easily falling to 22, 23 if he doesn't bring it. Oh, easily. Because they're going to want to develop Klingon. And Chauncey nothing drives Chauncey nuts more than just giving away free baskets. Right?
And no doubt. He's not going to the Hall of Fame because of his offense. Only his offense.
And if someone, but he also played in the area where he wasn't allowed to shoot as much. He actually shot pretty well. He could have averaged more points per game, but that's another story. But
he was fine. But I'm just saying,
he was a defensive-minded team, right?
He played on the Pistons team that was not trying to score 120.
He played on the Pistons-minded team that won a championship with a guy who, in the middle, who played elite defense and was awful on offense. Yep. So he knows because he saw it up close.
But he can rebound.
Right, exactly. And so can Klingon and so can Williams. So what I'm saying is that if Aiden's out there doing things that are hurting the team and setting a bad example and just bringing them down, he is going to diminish his minutes. And when he does so, and he puts those other two dudes in, those two dudes never, ever in their life have had their effort questioned. And that is what's going to hurt Aiden if he doesn't bring dominating to the court every single night. All right, let's move on. We can go on all day for that. I'm going to be right anyway, so I'll talk trash later. All right. The forward position. Grant and Denny will be just fine. Not spectacular. There's no depth. All right, moving on. You got anything to add to that?
Simple. But I mean, it's what it is. I'm excited for Denny for many reasons, right? Some personal reasons. I want him to be great. But I what I saw from him was a guy that got better when people kind of gave up on him. You know what I mean? Like, he was a lottery pick. People are like, oh, he's not going to be that great. Yeah, it was a bad team. He scored points. You talk about a guy that people don't question his effort. No one questions his effort. So I'm excited to see a hungry guy play who is still trying to prove that he can live up to a lottery, pick. And people that have questioned him, and now a team gave up on him. Like a rebuilding team said, hey, you were pretty much our leading scorer. You're 23 years old.
You have the greatest contract ever.
But we think we're going to ship you off for some other first-round picks and a vet. So that can't feel good. So he knows he has a chance here to be part of if you look at it, he's a guy that if he plays really well with his contract, he could be here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's at the very worst, if you draft and make some moves and you get better forwards and he comes off your bench, is that better?
No, but did I? Oh, I thought I disconnected. It was me.
Oh, okay.
I saw something spin. But we're all good.
Worst case scenario, if he's not a starter after everything gets shuffled and you get Cooper Flag, I'm just going to speak it into existence, okay? You get Cooper Flag.
You could do it.
So what do you have then? Okay, you have a guy coming off your bench who plays defense, rebounds, can play some point forward, right? can shoot it from the corner, not necessarily great from the perimeter or from the arc, but that could get better. And he's coming off the bench at $12, $13 million, $14 million a year. You're loving that, right? I mean, you just are. Or he's at least a fourth.
He's 24, 25.
He's a fourth or fifth option maybe on a good team. Or he comes off the bench and he's not making a lot of money. So, look, I've been told that Joe Cronin loves that contract. And Joe Cronin's made it clear he's really into the contracts and the money and figuring things out. And this is one of those guys where it's like, wow, we have maybe at worst a sixth man forward who can play both positions, or a starter who's not, he's not a guy who has to have the ball. He can do all the dirty work and give you production. So yeah, it's a nice get. I don't think he's the type of guy, obviously, doesn't put you over the top in any way, shape, or form. He's probably never going to be an all-star. He's never going to be a star, but he's a very productive player and he comes relatively cheap. Grant's 30. Grant said, I asked him, or someone asked him about his situation, and he said that Cronin has been transparent. I didn't ask that question. Someone else did. I can't remember who though. But then I followed up. And I said, can you say what that meant? He's been positive or something. So can you say what that means? And that's right. He said they're on the same page. Can you tell me what page it was? And he wouldn't get into it, which I didn't expect he would. But look, Grant, if they were contending, which they wanted to be with Lillard, Grant's nice. He's 30. He's going to be 31 soon. If they can flip him into some assets, hallelujah, right? If you can trade him by the deadline, if someone will take him in that contract, it feels like he helps put them over the top, then I think he's gone. If not, you keep him until that happens, or until you feel like, okay, we just got to move this guy now and get what we can get because he just doesn't fit, and we got to start Cooper and Denny.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to go eventually, but it's going to be hard. Because he's just not as good as Cooper Flagg.
Exactly. And that's your future. Cooper Flagg and Denny in the backcourt. All right.
I'm just saying, the thing about his contract's not, because it's there's been a lot of contracts signed after his that make his look not horrific, right?
Who, Grant? Oh, Grant.
It's not the right fit it's not the right fit for the Blazers. It's a terrible contract for them.
Right. But
this new salary cap stuff with the apron and the double apron makes things hard. If you're over the cap now, you lose first round draft picks if you're over a certain mark. You know what I mean? So people will figure it out. My question is, does anyone still think he could put you over the top and win a championship? Is there a team out there that wants that? And we don't know that yet because we have no idea who's going to be there.
That seems like a great place because they've been trying to find a forward who can be a reliable offensive weapon around LeBron forever. And he's a reliable offensive weapon. If LeBron and AD are drawing defensive attention, Grant can make you pay. And to me, that's a perfect, and he can shoot.
But they don't have anything to ship out.
Well, it's got to be picks. They got a couple picks that they can trade. And
yeah, but they don't have the room to stick. $35 million.
You take salary back. Yeah, obviously. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I'm just saying they don't have it. When you look at their roster, they're players that play make a crap ton of money. They're players that don't play, don't make a lot of money. And they're not very good.
All right. I don't know. You could take back. Oh, yeah. There's a big drop off.
See?
So here's the guy you would have to take back.
It's not a drop. It's a cliff.
You have to take back D'Angelo Russell. And I'm told that's no bueno.
And they're not trading him.
Right. No, I know. Yeah, it would be. Now, the Blazers do have a trade exception worth about 9 that they could absorb. So they have to find 22. So do you take back Rui at 17? Would they give up Rui?
Yeah, but why would but if you do that,
Grant's better than him.
That he is better, but it's kind of like now you got to Rui plays.
Actually, Rui shot well last year too, though. He shot 54 and 42.
Yes, he played really well at times.
So yeah, they probably figure that.
To me, that's not a trade you make if you're the Lakers, right? It's not worth that risk. It's not worth doubling the salary for him, and that's virtually what it is. I mean, Grant's double him.
Money
it's a hard trade to make when you're Lakers. No, but I'm saying that to me is not. I don't know. Do people still view him as that difference maker from a younger player that might be as good this year? But again, we don't know. we don't. I'm just saying it's not that easy to figure it out because you think certain teams are going to be in a certain place, and then Memphis is one of the worst teams in the league because of all their injuries and their issues. Right. You know what I mean? Like so, it's just a wild, long season. My question about Grant is he still viewed the way he was when the Blazers got him? Is he still a missing piece?
Fair.
And those are harder and harder to just add to your roster with the new salary cap rules.
Fair.
And take the risk.
All right, so we're not going to do season predictions. We're going to wait till after we see these guys play in the preseason, and then there's a gap, and we'll get into that later and all these things.
You say that. You already gave a perfectly good example of what the record's going to be. You said it. I mean, you just said it.
Out there. That wasn't my official prediction. All right, so let's move on to the Knicks and their moves. So this is not apples to apples, of course. And I'm not going to get into or even try to get into the minutia of each deal and what could have happened where, when, where, how, blah, blah. But the bottom line is the Blazers were committed to building around Damian Lillard. And they added Grant. That was the biggest move they did by moving CJ. They got a pick as well. Trade exception. Used the trade exception to get in the pick to get Grant. Anyway. Meanwhile, the Knicks go out and get Jalen Brunson from Dallas, which a lot of people question overpaying him. Why are you getting him? He can't be the number one. And I have a thing with what's that?
They signed him.
They signed him as a free agent? He was a complete free agent?
Yeah, it might have been a sign and trade in the end, but he was a free agent. Everyone knew he was coming to the Knicks. Won a trade.
Now, look, small guards rarely are the number one player on the championship team. Isaiah Thomas did it. Curry did it. That's been it in the last 50, 60, 70 years, whatever. So I have reservations about that. But if you surround that guy with a bunch of long, rangy dudes who can score, and two of them are pretty damn good defenders, then you got a pretty good chance of making it happen because that number one guy is so dynamic as a closer. So the Knicks go out and they get OG from Toronto, who was linked to the Blazers for the number 7 pick. That ended up being Shaden, but Toronto wanted much more than just that pick. They were linked in some ways to the number 3 pick that the Blazers used for Scoot. Never happened, obviously. Bridges at the time wasn't really available. It would have been really difficult to go get him because the Nets felt like they got a steal in getting him and all those picks for Grant, which they did, but the Nets thing fell apart because Ben Simmons fell apart mainly, and James Harden. So then you go out just recently and they get Karl Anthony Towns, who, obviously his defense is criticized, but he played really well last year for a team that went to the West Finals. And obviously there's been like a love-hate relationship with Julius Randle, right?
Thibs.
With Julius Randle in New York, and then Thibs with Julius Randle, and then Thibs with Cat a bit in Minnesota, but he liked Cat. He liked Cat. Cat didn't play defense necessarily, but
now they didn't go great.
But now he
didn't play the defense he wanted. He's young, but they and let me just say this: Julius Randle will always be cheered ridiculously loud in New York.
Okay,
he took us from suck to not suck.
Okay,
and he was a player no one wanted, and he went 2-time All-NBA. Team All-Star, played his butt off, got in great shape, and it was amazing in the community. You got to give up stuff to get great stuff.
I guess I'm basing on so many times I would just see Knicks fans on social media just going off about him, but that's not fair. Like social media is in real life. Yeah. Anyway, I'll take your word for it. But regardless,
he can't shoot. He shot 31% from 3, and he shot 5.3 threes a game.
That's not good.
Cat shoots 5.3 threes a game, and he shoots almost 42% last year.
So you add these 3 guys to Brunson. That's 4 dudes they went out and got.
Don't forget about Hart.
Hart's a role player. That's 4 dudes.
But they got him. He's a difference
level of those 4. Come on, you know what I'm talking about. The Blazers had Hart. Okay, the Blazers had Hart, but the Blazers weren't getting Cat. The Blazers weren't getting Bridges. The Blazers weren't getting a guy on Brunson's level, and the Blazers weren't getting OJ. That's my point. So the Knicks went out and pulled this off during the exact same window when the Blazers were trying to build around Dame. Again, it's not apples to apples, but my God, that's what Damian was talking about. It's like, when are we going to go all in and just go get dudes and not worry about the cap, not worry about aprons, not worry about first round picks down the line or that garbage. When are we going to go out there and bring me some dudes? And yeah, someone has 1 year left on their deal and might not sign. Bring him to me and let me talk to him and let me see if I can get him to stay because I'm Damian Lillard. I'll be the greatest teammate he's ever played with. Oh, and let's not forget, Indiana went out and got Siakam, right? And then went to the East Finals, and Siakam was linked to the Blazers in some way. So that's 4 dudes, not counting Brunson, because Brunson was a free agent signing, blah, blah, blah. But that's 4 dudes that the Blazers maybe could have been in on, although I was told they weren't very high on cap, but regardless, that went to other teams to help those teams win, and you couldn't get anyone. And then, of course, I'm not saying the Blazers should have gotten Kyrie, but Dallas went out and got Kyrie, which has worked better than I thought. So teams are out there making moves and doing things, and the Blazers did nothing to help Damian. And one team, the Knicks, got 3 dudes in, 3 to help Brunson. It's incredible to me.
And the one thing somebody's going to say, well, they're New York. Let's not forget that New York was toxic. And everyone said no one would go to New York. Leon Rose has done an amazing job because the owner is still toxic. And he figured out how to do it. Now they hit him. Now they did. They won I don't want to say the lottery because there's a lottery. But Brunson, that's a jackpot move that they paid a guy. And also, Brunson took less money in the big contract.
Less money than
Damian Lillard did not.
What?
Yeah, he took less. He left them move to keep them under that second apron. And that's allowed them to make these moves. And they got a crap ton of picks. They just kept stockpiling the picks, which, as you said, the Blazers kind of did that with the trade. So maybe they can eventually. But the history says that that they didn't do it. Neil didn't do it. And then Joe Cronin said we're gonna put all our chips in, and then they didn't.
But here's the thing with Neil. So Neil didn't do it, but not very many impact players changed teams that were even remotely possible. Like LeBron moved, Durant moved. That wasn't right. Like there just weren't really. And I always ask people, who should they have gotten? And people can never really give me anyone because if you go look, look at the free agent list,
Paul George moved a month like 7 times,
right? But he didn't want to come to Portland. Is my point. Like, so these guys were not going to come to Portland. So there were talks made for all those guys. Now, Jason Quick insists that,
and they weren't going to New York either. They all turned down New York too.
I'm just saying it was a little different era. Is what I'm saying. This what just happened with New York is crazy. Because and then the Siakam as well. And in a year and a half, that many dudes were on the move, and the Blazers couldn't get one. You get one, and then you make a couple other tweaks, and Damian's still here, and you are a playoff team. You may be first round and out. You may be second round and out. But at least you have 3 years of fun back in the Moda Center and playoff basketball back in the Moda Center. And then when Dame's done, then you go get the transcendent generational guy after you tank, because there's always going to be another Scoot. There's always going to be another Shaden. So again, I'm not blaming the Blazers for not making those moves necessarily, because I can't sit here and say they could have done. But I'm just saying that in the same window where you allegedly were going to build around Dame, although Dame did leave ultimately or demand out, a bunch of guys were moving around the league, and 3 specifically went to New York, and it's just crazy.
And let's just you can't ignore the fact that Milwaukee went and got Dame.
That counts.
You know what I mean? Like, that's another thing where, no, I'm saying Milwaukee was like, we won a title, but we think we need more. So they gave up a guy who won a title in Dallas. It didn't work last year. We'll see what happens this year. But they watched their point guard go win a title, be a huge missing piece for Boston and win a championship. But they went for it. And that's what that's what Dame wanted. He said it over and over again. Just show me something.
Right.
And they thought Grant, and he was like, that's nice.
That was a good start. That was a great start.
It was a great start. It's a nice piece. Yeah, like, thank you for the sweet potatoes. This is gonna make the meal great, but I need a main meal here. Like, give me some turkey, give me some ham, give me something. And they never did. They never did. So you're right. And here's the thing. Every time, like, even as a Knicks fan, I was shocked because I thought, how can we go get another guy without giving up because Randall's a free agent after this year. Cat signed. So I'm like, all this stuff, you're like, oh, but they figured it out. You know what I mean? And you do have to give up, like DiVincenzo, a New York hero last year, and he's one of the Villanova boys. But they're like, you know what? You're not 7'2".
Right.
So we'll get the 7-footer, and we'll bring him in here. And that's what Dame wanted. He wanted them to try. And he felt like no one tried. And LaMarcus walked.
That's the killer, man.
Which is also...
Okay, did you see?
You can't ignore it. I hated to do it, but that's the truth.
Did you see where Damian was quoted as saying that he thinks they would have won a championship had LaMarcus stayed, right? And I was asked, "Are you going to post something on this?" I'm like, "No, I don't really want to post on it because I've heard that before. That's been talked about. That's been said. I don't think it's. I literally did not want to post about it because I'm like, who cares? Like it's if he had, it's been 10 years.
Right, so
it's been 10 years, and also
he retired twice already.
Also, it's BS. I'm not saying Damian's like full of it necessarily, but you would have still had to deal with the Warriors, right? The Warriors still had Durant. They haven't gotten Durant yet. The Warriors are going to add Durant. You weren't beating that team. You just weren't.
I agree, but if you're Dame, I understand it because he feels like that's what he needed, and they were at the right time. And if they could have added Grant and had LaMarcus, they would have, in his belief.
Grant came after LaMarcus was way past his prime.
I'm just saying, I'm just throwing something. Right. No, I'm just saying, like, if they would have maybe brought in another forward, a 3 or something, like, he believed in himself so much that he wanted a 1-2 punch. And remember, CJ would have still been there.
I agree.
So they might have had it.
Okay.
And he believed in that.
I'm just saying. It was still.
And he was close. He went to a Western Conference Finals.
Right, okay. Yes, they did. Okay.
They got a little lucky.
Yeah, I'm just
the Clippers basically had no players alive.
Okay, so they would have to have dealt with the Warriors. That's first, and then LaMarcus started declining in 1920.
He did.
His numbers started all going down, and he just began a rapid decline. So his window would have been 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, and I guess if he's around 18, 19. Then I guess you could say, okay, well, we had our Aldridge on that team. Maybe we could win it. But again, you're dealing with the Warriors. Now, if you say, well, Durant was hurt, so maybe we beat them then. But you can't. I mean, if that's your argument, fine.
Of course,
but then you have to beat
I'm
Toronto.
just saying he has to believe in himself, and he did.
And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
And he believed if he had a Robin, he could have Batman them to a title.
Maybe. I just think that for me, like that window of the super team still being in existence would have been a problem. Now, I think after the super team, that's when the window opened because we've seen already. Like last year, no one had Indiana, Minnesota, and
sure.
Who did Minnesota play? Oh, Dallas. No one had those three in the West Finals or in the East Finals. No one had them in the Final Four. But all that talk about, I don't think you could put pieces around Dame to make a run. Well, all three of those teams put pieces around people to make a run, and no one in the world had those three making it to the conference finals. So that's why I say you go all in around Dame and you roll the dice and see what happens because it was open season. There was no real super team. That's what we just saw. Warriors and then who beat the Heat? Warriors beat Boston. Who just beat the Heat a couple years ago?
Well, in the finals? Milwaukee won a title.
The last 3 years, it went Golden State. Oh my God, why am I drawing a blank here? Denver. Sorry. Yeah. Golden State, Denver.
I can't even follow your brain.
Golden State, Denver, and then Boston. So we're in an era where we're not seeing teams rattle off 2, 3, 4 championships in a row, right? We're not seeing that. It's wide open. And so that's why, Dame really felt if you go out, you make some power moves and you give us a chance, we can be in the mix and then anything can happen. Anyway, all right. We've gone for an hour. You got anything else before we go?
No, I think we're good, man. I got to get kind of breathe through this. And we haven't even started the season. Frustration level of Fentress is already at a 7.
I'm not actually. I was pretty chill yesterday. I'm not really frustrated. I'm trying to find things to latch onto, and I'm gonna latch onto playing fast, playing hard, doing your best, being gritty, gutty. Getting some surprise wins, winning in the low 20s though, and getting Cooper flags. That's where I'm at.
That's it. Get Cooper Flag. Win the lottery. That's Cooper it. Flag. So easy. I'm about this. Danny.
You're about Danny. And Shaden's going to blow up. Ant's going to blow up and then get traded to a place where my man Ant can have his own team and not be dealing with this nonsense.
The Bulls.
Hey, I'd take him. But the Bulls got Kobe White. I like Kobe White. All right, that's it for the Blazer Focus the Blazer Hocus Pocus podcast. No, the Blazer Focus podcast. Thanks for listening. We got Fan Fest on Saturday. Am I going to see you there, Craig? You coming to Fan Fest? Bring your kid, man. No, you're not old enough for Fan Fest. The Bigfoot dude might scare him.
Loud things. We're still getting used to loud things.
All right, we'll be back soon with an update on how I was right and Craig was wrong.